The SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100. Today's video has to be a little bit quicker. We need to go over a few things. Now, the first thing I do want to start on, say if you do not follow me on Twitter, then you did not see this, but I try to always stay as transparent as possible. So I always let y'all know what's going on with what I'm doing and what's happening. But earlier today, I did post this morning right here. Said was wrong. Can't find any consistent buyers. Lost about $1,200 on the day. Was up over $2,000 on Home Depot. Yesterday, the trade was already up for like 30%, but I just let it keep running. Again, we were trying to go for the home run. We were sized in pretty well on it, but that's how the trade went. Anyways, lost about $1,200 on that trade and then had to move on, right? I want to highlight that because when you're trading and you're looking at the market, it's important to know a few things right now more than ever. If you don't know, basically 10 huge people on Twitter and social media just got arrested. Why? Because they were misleading and misguiding investors. Now, first of all, when you come to the channel, you need to know this is not financial advice, but you also need to know that I try to be as transparent as possible, whether I'm making, losing, whatever it may be. That's why I show you the losers. So you understand you're not going to just go into this, get a Lambo and get filthy rich. Now, I could go rent a Lambo if I wanted to and feed you this nonsense and tell you to join my Discord and you make all this money. But the fact of the matter is that's not who I am. And that's not what the channel's about. So I want y'all to understand that. So when you come to this, understand that I'm going to be wrong occasionally, but use me as an indicator. Do not use me as financial advice. Do your own DD, because guess what? At the end of the day, you are responsible for your money. I am not. No one else is, unless you have a financial advisor, which I do recommend you go seek out and try to find one. But so we're going to get to this right now. Looking at what's happening, basically, I want to go over a few things specifically here on SPY, and then we'll go a little bit further. So we've seen ultimately broke out the higher low trend that you had going on here, but I want to highlight something a little bit more in depth. You've been in a range of basically above 390 to 410 since, well, really 402, 404, bulk of that time, since basically November 10th, November 11th. Fast forward a whole month, we're still there and we're finally breaking out of this. Now, on the day, let's talk about what happened. Now, I went over the Fed, everything that was happening there. And again, if you watch my long-term videos on Sunday, which I post every single Sunday, a long-form content video, then you understand my viewpoint on the long term and how I believe the bottom is not in. I even said that in the video yesterday and the video before that, right? I believe there's a possibility that we could reach new lows, and JP Morgan even has that statistic coming out pretty high, that there's a large, I think it's like a 75% chance we test either lows or make a new lows on the beginning of Q1 coming into the year. I've said that. I made the videos on it, and go watch the videos. I don't really care. Anyways, going through this, let's talk about what's happening on the market. You finally broke below the 390 level. And I want to address something a little bit more clearly also, because I did tell you yesterday. What did I say? And I say it every day because I want people to understand what's really going on here. I'm going to hide this really quick so you can see. I just want to show you the 200 moving average. I know some people may be tired of hearing about it, but guess what? It is what it is. This is your 200 moving average, this light blue line. You've held below it essentially for almost a year now. Well, sorry, it's getting close. You've held it below for a long time. You mount and try to mount above it, but again, you continue to hold below. I mentioned this to you yesterday. I said, look, if you cannot hold below the ES 200 moving average on futures, then you have to be bearish. I said I was taking a chance. That was my position. And that's why I even said, you wrote 40%, do what you got to do, take whatever you got to do, right? You're in charge of your own finances. You're in charge of your size. Now, when we go back into this, I do want to highlight that right now, if we look at something like the weekly candle, things have gotten ugly. You went from basically being a bullish engulfing to being almost an inverted hammer / gravestone right now. We'll talk about this at the end of the week. But it's not attractive, and it definitely doesn't scream, I want to buy. So again, that's why I just told you, guys, I was wrong. I thought maybe you would get some potential to get out of this range. Didn't get it. Buyers never showed up. Now, what are we seeing today? And I think there's a big difference between today than what we have been seeing on selling the past few days. I'm going to go into that here in a second. Before we do that, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I post videos for you, so you're prepared. They're unbiased. I tell you what I'm doing, how I'm trading, and everything in between. Again, this is not financial advice. You always need to do your own research. But I try to be as transparent as possible, so I'm not just saying things to hype anything up, but this is really what I believe in, what's happening. Now let's get back to the charts. Also, I do want to highlight what I traded on the day. So even though, and again, I always say this, I try to say it as much as possible. I have a long-term and a short-term viewpoint, okay? Always. I usually end the day pretty liquid. Going today, I traded nothing. And then around noon, I started buying Apple puts when it broke below 138 and got the BRB off of it. Into around 278, you could have got entries around 265 because you had a little bit of a push. Contracts ended up going over 40%, made about $1,000 at the 3.3 range. Made a little bit more when I cut the rest at around 3.65 roughly. They got to around 380, 390. That was the contract. That was the trade of the day and what we did there. The Discord link is down below, but it's primarily for education. So don't think you're going to get in there and get rich quick. That is not what I try to promote whatsoever. I try to promote education and understanding how to trade. If you join a Discord, I can guarantee you, you're probably not going to get rich quick. There's probably about a 9,000% chance that you will not get rich quick. So what we're looking at here on ES is where we're at right now. Now, a lot of people are looking at futures on something like TradingView or TOS, and you are getting the wrong information. So if I look at NQ, you can see that you're at 11.4, and if you come to something like the daily, you can see, oh, look, you're still in the range. If we go to ES, guess what? You're still in the range. False, fake news. What you don't know is contracts rolled over. So you're in the medium phase right now. So you still have half the contracts trading in this quarter, and then some are rolled over for next quarter, right? That's what's happening right now. And so if you look at what's really happening based on the data that has not rolled over, right? Because if you look, SPY, whenever NQ and those gapped up, guess what? SPY did not gap up with it or move with it. They did not respect that. So what you're seeing, this is the true form. So you've broken out of this channel and you're below this. So as long as you break and stay below 39.20, I think you have to assume more downside. But ultimately, if we step back to our original thesis of if you remain below the 200 moving average, what? You have to remain bearish, right? As long as you're below the 200 MA, you have to expect the downside. That has to be kind of your day trading strategy. Now, you can look for more swings and try to get a little bit riskier, but right now, that's where we're at. I do want to highlight though, we're basically ending the day back at around 390. We have about 30 minutes left in the day. I have to make this video quicker. I'm sorry. You are retesting this range. And if you're a seller and you expect more downside, you need to stay below the 390 range unless you're going to get back into this. And we do not want to get back into that range. However, downside potential, let's talk about it. Now, there's a few arguable levels that you have possibly to test. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this right here is totally illiquid. It's terrible. You had a previous supply level here. You broke right through it, just gapped right above. Disgusting. So going forward, if I'm looking, and I want to show you something like Qs because it's just disgusting when we look here, you have nothing essentially until about the 264 range. So if you start to break down under about 275, I'm assuming sellers are going to get aggressive, and they've already started to get pretty aggressive. You started flipping below the 280 level also. I do want to show you this as well. So if I bring in this indicator really quick, if we look at the 200 moving average on the weekly, you are flipping that level now here on NQ and on QQQ. You're staying below that level right here. The dotted line, it's disgusting. If I go over to something like NQ, again, this all just happened today. So this is what you're seeing here. You're flipping below these levels. So these are major levels you need to be watching. This is going to be the 200 simple moving average on the NQ and QQQ. So if you're using something like TradingView, just watch QQQ because it's going to give you more respectable answers. There's a reason if you go to something like NQ on TradingView, it's not going to give you the same data pools like you're seeing on the indexes like SPY and QQQ in respective to their futures. So that's a big thing to be expecting. Now, I'm going to look at some stocks here also for you so you can stay prepared, but I want to talk about VIX also. Now, we were seeing a lot of selling happening on VIX, even with the downside from the past 2 days, right? So we had the 2 days of just downside on VIX, even though we were getting a little bit of blood on the market, right? Why? In my opinion, we saw a lot of profit taking into that Fed meeting. After the Fed meeting, I believe it was not profit taking, if you will. Going into today, I believe you were seeing actually a lot of shorts stepping up. That's why you're seeing VIX go up because VIX is moving based on the derivatives market. So you're seeing more shorts, more puts, more aggressive sellers, in my opinion, stepping on the market finally, which you haven't seen in some time. So that's important to understand here and important to be looking at. But VIX, you still see a little bit of a downside maybe forming out here, but I want that to be highlighted. Looking at yields, we talked about this yesterday. They are not inverted, but they're still, I believe, making that higher low trend. This is important to realize. You're still in this higher low trend, which has gone on for almost 2 years. So I would still be respecting, still be watching this. Now, going over some stocks I'm liking. I want to talk about Apple because, again, if you've been here for any time at all, then you know I've mentioned Apple so much. It's one of the most influential charts. If you look here, you're at the bottom of this weekly. This is a weekly higher low pennant you're forming here. I want to make sure you understand this is weekly. Going into this, what's important to understand? You're pushing up, you broke the key level 138 and you're sitting below it. And you've retested it, I believe, 2 times now. If this breaks below and you start to get out of this higher low structure here, I believe this could really drag the SPY down. I've been saying this for weeks. This has been one of my biggest things to watch, right? Because you have the lower highs you're making here on the weekly also, within the pennant also. These are a lot of key areas you need to be watching. And I don't like this. I'm not a big fan. I have no dated puts. I'm literally taking it day by day, liquid going into each market now, just taking my profits. And I believe if there's any mistake that I've made over the past few weeks, specifically the past week and a half, it's been being a little bit greedy. I would say my Nvidia trade, I was up 30%. My Home Depot trade up almost, 35%, right? I was really, really aggressive because I wanted to get the move outside of that channel, right? That's what I was looking for. Unfortunately, we didn't get that move, so I had to take a little bit of a loss in those, right? And I made those losses back. It is what it is. We're still sitting the count around 50K, and I'm going to do the full recap going into the beginning of January so you guys can see. But really, my goal right now has been to at least hold the account at 50K, and then if I'm going for stuff, try to get a big winner. I'd rather have a big winner, keep the account around 50K at the minimum. That's been my overall strategy lately, and that's where we're at. So again, right here, what I'm looking for is hopefully to hold this if you're looking at a bullish viewpoint. If you get below this and start breaking below 135, I think you're coming down probably to 134, and then you're going to start coming down towards 128. If that breaks, you're looking really bad. But right now, the 137 level isn't even holding, and even with SPY trying to bounce, this is concerning for me. So it's really going to play out overnight and see what happens here. Going into Home Depot, I do want to highlight this because a lot of people are asking about it. I told you guys under 330, that was pretty much your stop loss. I don't really know what else to talk about there. So if you're looking here, what you were looking to trade was to get the breakout of this double top level. So, double bottom. So double bottom, breaking over. You couldn't hold and you held below 333 and then also 330 right here. That was a stop loss marker for me. That's why I had to get out of the trade, posted it also on Twitter so everyone could see. Now, going a little bit further, I do want to highlight a few things that I am watching. Tesla, this is pretty interesting and big. If I go to Tesla, I do want to highlight a lot of requests about this. If you go to something like the daily chart, you can actually go all the way back here. And you do have some gaps down here. I want to address that. You have a daily gap locally at 138. I'm not saying you go there, but the next big level to watch is going to be the 151 level from here. So these are all levels I would be watching at, very dangerously close to hitting that level today. But even with some of the upside we were seeing, Tesla couldn't break up. And then it kind of baselined here. Really similar to when we went long back over here. If you do remember, this is when we went long originally. We traded all the way, I think, up to 184 and then got out of that, but then it run even more. So I do want to address that as you're kind of trying to baseline here. If SPY starts to bounce, I think you could get some love, but I do want to address this right here, the elephant in the room. If you don't know, Elon Musk was selling about, I think, 1.2 million shares of Tesla, if you don't know, over the past few days. So that equated to around $3.6 billion. You can see this on TrendSpider right there. If you're interested in TrendSpider, the link is down below also. But this is what I'm looking at here on Tesla. I'm really curious to how it respects this 151 level. But I also do want to show you something that I am interested in as far as weakness that you're seeing now. If you go to something like the weekly, you can see right now, remember that key level where we were buying it from for that 200 MA on the weekly was a support? Well, you broke below and you flipped that. If you can get back above this 164 level, I'd be looking for longs potentially. But until then, there's just no real reason to buy for me personally. And as you can even see right now, you're seeing the market try to get back in this range. So I'm not too hopeful of a massive breakdown. And that's why I'm going into each day liquid. I think liquidity is my best friend right now, and I'm just looking to take these day trade setups. So far, the day trades have been solid, but I haven't been taking an excess of them. I've been waiting to get a key setup, and then I trade the setup, and then that's it for me on the day. I'd rather take one really good trade than 10 arbitrarily decent trades, right? I want to have the least amount of risk possible, specifically in this market. But right now, this is where you're at. Again, for tomorrow, what am I looking for? If you get back above 390, you're really just in this range back and forth, back and forth. Volume was decent today, but that's really what I'm saying. If I'm trying to become a bull, what do I need to see? You got to get back above the 200 moving average on the daily minimum. That's what you have to do. The dotted line, it's all the way back here at 40.30 on ES. On SPY, that level in relativity is around 402. And you just can't hold these levels. That's what's happening right now. And of all these, I think Q's seems to be the weakest link. That's just my personal opinion. If you go to the weekly, you have to go to the 200 MA on the weekly, and it's right there locally at around 278.8. That's the big level I'd be watching, but right now, honestly, it's not looking good. And I think there's a possibility you open up to the downside, but right now, I'm waiting to see what happens. If we open up tomorrow and we trade below 390, I will be looking for more downside pressure. If we get back above that, you're just back in the range, and that's kind of the worst trading scenario in my opinion, but that's what I'd be looking for. I'm gonna have a really deep intel video going on this weekend about the long-term viewpoints of what's happening and overall where we're going moving forward. That's my opinion. Sorry if the video is a little bit quicker today. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.